All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jorge Acosta Palmer, and I'm the director of the Statewide Training Initiative with Florida Legal Services. We're excited to have you join us here today for the second part of our Expanding Pro Bono Partnerships in Florida series. This is Reptiles Pro Bono Initiatives and the Certified Lawyers on Call service. Before I introduce our speakers, I do want to go through some quick housekeeping announcements. The training is being recorded. You're going to receive a copy of this recording in an email from Zoom within 24 hours. If you don't see that email, I'm going to drop my email in the chat just in case, so make sure you don't miss out on it. The training was approved for CLE by the Florida Bar. We have one general CLE and one certification credit for business litigation and one certification credit for wills, trust, and estates and real estate. I will announce the CLE code towards the end of the session. I will also drop it into the chat, and the CLE code will also be included in the email that will go out from soon. Those captions are enabled for anybody who needs them. If you're having any issues with accessibility, you can let me know directly. This training is being co-hosted in partnership with the Public Interest Law section, or PILS, and the Real Property, Probate, and Trust Law section of the Florida Bar, or Reptiles. So this is the second part of the series. If you missed the first part, I will include the link to the recording on the email that goes out from Zoom, just in case you want to catch that one. So both sections have some amazing resources, and they do some great work. So I'm gonna drop links for both websites of the sections into the chat so you can check them both out. You will notice that we have multiple speakers here today to talk about multiple initiatives. So for questions, I'm going to ask the folks attending that they use the Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to address all the questions towards the end of the presentation. So I think that's my last piece of housekeeping announcements. And rather than introduce everybody, what we're gonna do today, I'm gonna pass it off to our first speaker, Brett Henson. And Brett is a shareholder and member of the construction practice group at Carlton Fields in Tampa, Florida, where he focuses his practice on construction litigation. He is a board certified attorney by the Florida Bar in Construction Law and serves as the vice chair of both the Construction Law Committee of the Reptile Section along with the Florida Bar Standing Committee for Construction Law Board Certification. So with that said, Brett, you're up. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you everyone for attending this afternoon. This program has been a few months in the making, but we are happy to meet with you today. And just to kind of give you an introduction as to how this came to be, there are a variety of different pro bono initiatives within the real property, probate, and trust law section of the Florida Bar. We call ourselves Reptiles for short. And what we wanted to do was come together and explain to you what some of those initiatives and offerings are. We have a number of very qualified real property and probate lawyers within the section that would be willing to serve in a variety of capacities and offering their services on a pro bono basis. And so what we'd like to do is just kind of go over some of those initiatives that the section offers and also give you some recommendations on how you can connect in the event that you have a client or a prospective client that is in need of pro bono services that fall within the realm of real property or probate law. The other thing that I would like to mention is the importance of board certification. During this process, Steve Rubin and I, who is one of our speakers today, have had an opportunity to connect. Steve is the former chair of the Board of Legal Specialization and Education and is also a member of the Real Property Probate Trust Law section. And so there are a lot of opportunities for you to connect with board certified specialists if you are having clients face specialized legal issues in those areas. So with those comments, I do want to introduce our speakers today. Our first speaker is Brenda Ezell. Brenda is a partner and founder of the Ezell Law Firm in Jacksonville, Florida. She is a member of the Reptile Executive Council, or has been since 2010, and currently serves on the executive committee. And Brenda is going to help, for those who are not familiar with how Reptile is structured, better understand how we're set up. I can tell you that I've not been involved with the section as long as Brenda has, but it can be a little cumbersome in understanding how we're set up from a committee standpoint, but we have a lot of expertise, and hopefully by getting an understanding as to how the section is set up, you'll be better able to connect with us. Brenda is also board certified in real estate law. Colleen Sachs is also a member of the reptile section. She is an underwriting manager for the Attorney's Title Fund Services after having joined the fund in 2019. She has also been in private practice in New Orleans, Louisiana, and has since returned to Florida. And Colleen is going to be talking about some of these sections initiatives as it relates to disaster and emergency preparedness. In addition, Colleen is going to mention a reptile initiative referred to as No Place Like Home, which dovetails into our next speaker's area of expertise, LaTonya Lipscomb Smith, who is with Three Rivers Legal Services, and we'll be talking about a sister program known as the Heirs Property Project. And our hope today is that in hearing Colleen and LaTonya's presentations, you'll have a better understanding as to where the section can assist through the No Place Like Home program, or where legal services providers can assist through the Heirs Property Project. Finally, well, not finally, but myself and Pamela Holcombe will be talking on behalf of the Construction Law Committee. I oftentimes tell people I'm a member of the Construction Law Committee of the Real Property Probate Trust Law section of the Florida Bar, and that seems like a real mouthful. But what you'll learn is that the Construction Law Committee is the largest voluntary bar association of construction lawyers in the state of Florida. Construction law in Florida is a very, I guess you would say, popular practice area. We have over 562 members within our committee and over 400 board certified construction lawyers in the state of Florida. And so Pam and I hope to share with you some of the ways in which our pro bono subcommittee has been able to assist clients that face legal issues that fall within the area of construction law. And finally, Steve Rubin is going to chat about the program known as CLOC. That's the acronym. Certified Lawyers on Call is the full name of the program. And he will be explaining to you how in virtually all of the board certification specialty areas, there is a mechanism for you to connect with a board certified lawyer, even if they're not directly representing the client, but to provide specialized legal guidance and assistance if you encounter issues in that regard. So we've got a great panel of speakers today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brenda so she can help you all better understand how the section is organized, the reptile section, and the types of substantive areas that we have expertise in that can be used in assisting your clients. Brenda?
Thank you, Brett. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a few minutes about the monster that is the RPPTL section and give you a little bit of understanding about who we are, what we do, and how we can all work together on some of these pro bono initiatives. So first of all, the reptile section is comprised of over 12,000 members. It's the largest section of the Florida Bar. And our purpose, one of our purposes, is, well, we serve, obviously, the citizens of the state. It's important to understand that our function is really to serve the citizens of the state, the legal community, and our members with the highest level of knowledge, experience, and commitment to real property, probate, and trust law. And some of the purposes include assisting in developing real property, probate, and trust law, and to serve the public generally and the bar in interpreting and carrying out the public and professional needs and objectives in the fields of real property, probate, and trust law. Next slide. Also, to improve the implementation and application of laws, rules, and regulations in the fields of real property, probate, and trust law, and to accomplish legislative objectives and to improve the administration of real property, probate, and trust laws. Next slide. How is it organized? It took me probably 2 years to really understand the organization of our section because it's really big. So we have two divisions. There is the real property division and the probate and trust law division. The executive committee is the arm of the executive council that is the leadership. So we have a section chair. Currently, it's John Moran, and we have the chair-elect, which is the person responsible for all of our general standing committees. We have two division directors, the real property director and the probate and trust law director. and also officers like most organizations. We have a secretary and a treasurer. We have an at-large members director. We call them ALMs, and the ALMs, about 75 members of the executive council are designated as at-large members, and that group is the connection to our various circuits throughout the state. So those members of the executive council keep us all connected to the members in their particular circuits of the state. Another member of the executive committee is our past chair. We have 2 CLE committee co-chairs, one of which I serve in that capacity right now for the real property division. And we have a CLE committee co-chair for the probate and trust law section. And we have 2 legislation committee co-chairs, one on the real property side and one on the probate and trust side. Next slide. So here's some of our real property substantive committees: commercial real estate, condo and plan development, construction law, which is our largest substantive committee on the real property side, development and land use, insurance and surety, real estate leasing, real property finance and lending, real property litigation, real property problem study, which is a committee that just focuses on the problems of today, whatever that might be, as it relates to real estate. We have residential real estate and industry liaison committee, and the title issues and title standards committee. And I have to say, one of our speakers, Colleen Sachs, is currently a member of the at-large members division, and was recently chosen as our at-large member of the year. So we're in really good company here. Next slide, please. On the probate and trust division side, the substantive committees include asset protection, charitable planning and exempt organizations, the elective share committee, estate and trust tax planning, guardianship, powers of attorney and advance directives committee, the IRA insurance and employee benefits committee. Next slide. The principal and income committee, probate and trust law litigation, probate law and procedure, which is probably the largest committee on the probate and trust side, and the trust law committee. Next slide. So we also have general standing substantive committees, including homestead, information technology, professionalism and ethics, and ad hoc committees as projects come up, as issues and projects come up. So we create several ad hoc committees from time to time. And another thing to note is we have an executive council member that serves as the liaison to the Florida Bar Pro Bono and Legal Services Committee. Her name is Lorna Brown Burton, and so she's our liaison with the Big Bar's Pro Bono Legal Services Committee. So she keeps us all connected with how we can work on pro bono projects on behalf of the Florida Bar. Next slide.
Brenda, before we move on to the next slide, I just want to ask you to speak for a moment about the role of the at-large members within the section and how legal aid service providers might connect with an at-large member within their circuit.
Yes, so each of the circuits throughout the state has an at-large member, at least one at-large member appointed to it. Many of the larger circuits have 3 or 4, but there's always one person who's designated as the lead at-large member, and we call them the lead ALM. And that person is responsible for disseminating information to the section members in that circuit. So there are feet on the ground in the circuits as it relates to issues that affect that circuit. So for instance, when we have, you'll hear more about this later, but the at-large members in the various circuits take the lead on the projects that we get involved with. So we had several years ago, we participated in a project called FACE, which is Florida Attorneys Counseling on Evictions, and the at-large members in each of the circuits was responsible for getting information out to the members in their circuits and trying to assist us with having volunteers to speak to people who were facing evictions at the time. I don't know if we're going to talk any about FACE at all, Brett, but it was a fairly successful project. It's not really active right now, but I would like to say one thing about it. In July of 2020, we started the project because many of the renters, due to the pandemic, couldn't pay their monthly rent because of COVID. And once the governor's there was a moratorium on evictions, but once the moratorium was set to end, we knew that there would be a flood of eviction cases. So through one of our at-large members who has since passed away, his name is Linwood Arnold. Linwood Arnold was involved with Pro Bono Legal Services Committee and created a project called FACE. And so we, together with the legal aid organizations in our respective circuits, solicited volunteers to help attorneys learn how to counsel people on evictions, because there was a whole training program set up where we taught the lawyers how to do a basic eviction and how to help defend people from eviction. So it was a fairly successful project, but that's how the at-large member division works in our section. We are the outreach to each of the sections. So typically you can go on the reptile section's website and find the at-large member in your district and contact them with any issues or assistance that you might need on pro bono matters. And so we're working to set up some more formalized methodology for pro bono organizations to reach out directly to the at-large members in their circuit. So stay tuned on that.
Stay tuned on that. And Brenda is our incoming, am I correct in saying this, chair of the at-large members? Is that?
They still have to vote on it.
Still, we think it'll happen.
You all have to vote yes.
You got my vote. Okay. All right. So thanks, Brenda. I appreciate that. And I can tell you that I've not been involved with the section as long as Brenda, although I have been involved since about 2017. And my kind of entry point was getting involved with the construction law committee, and that's really where I've been for the past, what is it now? Almost 8 years. And so it can be very difficult to understand how the section operates. But I think that one takeaway that this group could keep in mind would be that it operates from a kind of a top-down perspective, because we have the executive committee that governs the executive council, but we also have a grassroots opportunity for connection with the at-large members. And so, there are multiple ways to connect with the section. And so with that, I want to segue over to Colleen Sachs to talk about this is a general standing committee. Colleen will correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a general standing committee through the reptile section, the Real Property Probate Trust Law Disaster and Emergency Preparedness and Response Committee. Colleen, could you talk about the work of this committee?
I'm happy to. And our committee also is a mouthful. And we are talking about possibly changing the name to something a little bit shorter, but I appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words, Brenda. I have been an at-large member. This will be going on my 33rd year, and it's extremely rewarding to be involved with the at-large members. And I'll talk a little bit about the ALMS as well in this presentation, but I am Colleen Sachs and chair of the Disaster Emergency Preparedness and Response Committee. And you are correct in our section structure. It is a general standing committee, so not part of either dirt or death. And our co-vice chairs are Amy Beller and Mike Bedke. And our committee began in the aftermath of the 2018 Hurricane Michael. It was the first Category 5 hurricane that made landfall in the United States since Andrew in '92. And my home county of Walton is adjacent to Bay County, where Mexico Beach was absolutely flattened. We were very fortunate to have very little damage in our county, and that put us in a very good position to come to the aid of our neighbors. And the section leadership really stepped up to help get the word out as to the type of help that was needed. Lists of items that were needed were provided to section members, and then they shipped those items to my office so that we could deliver them. And we wound up with 3 truckloads of supplies for people and for pets that were delivered to various distribution points throughout Bay County. And then we also worked to find attorneys in the affected area to help them find temporary office space. Our office was able to put some people up when I was in private practice. And so you'll see that our committee focuses on both the attorneys and on attorneys' clients. So the way that we can help attorneys and the way we can help their clients, and both in the preparedness and in the recovery. And after this event, section leadership recognized that this was a situation that would continue to occur. And they started this committee. And we find that members of the committee usually come to it as a result of an experience with a disaster or an emergency. So while I came to the committee based on my experience with storms, Vice Chair Amy Beller arrived with a lot of emergency knowledge that was based on her experience of being in the midst of the Twin Towers collapse on 9/11. And she has had some very good advice, but also very chilling story to tell about that. But our purpose is to educate members of the section on how to prepare their offices and how to prepare their clients for a disaster. And we do this through programming at the meetings we have during the Executive Council meeting weeks, 4 times a year. Those meetings are not recorded, but they're available in person if you're going to the section meeting or via Zoom. And I encourage everybody to attend those meetings and get involved with us. We also provide up-to-date information during and after disasters. As you can see on the slide here, we post updates during storms, and those updates include court closures and where to find help. And that information is constantly updated as information is received during the storm. So we've been able to really help with that. Next slide, please. And so some of the issues we address, prevention and recovery. Prevention is extremely important, and then how you recover. Planning for resilience, that's part of prevention as well, but it's trying to make things so that you have less damage from whatever disaster or emergency you're talking about, and that the recovery from it, any damage you have, is also easier. So we talk about resiliency on both ends of the spectrum. And then safeguarding property, of course, and people and pets. And then preparation for and recovery from storms specifically. And then guarding against fraud has been a huge part of what we do lately. There is so much cyber fraud. We are seeing the industry that I am in, dealing with real estate closings, is fraught with it. And so our committee is constantly looking for ways to educate people on what they can do to try to make their information and their money and that of their clients more safe. And a lot of these areas do overlap. And we address these through programming. That's the primary thing that we do, and the way we get information out. We had a recent, I believe at Amelia Island, a program called Weathering the Storm that was insights from personal experience. That was one of our section members who lost her home during one of the recent storms on the southwest coast of Florida. And it was very informative. I did one a few years ago after we were affected by Hurricane Sally up here, and I didn't have power for about 3 weeks, explaining how you can work from a Ford F-150 or whatever other type of vehicle you have, and the things you need to make sure you have in your possession prior to the storm, and then how to make it all work together after the storm, whether it's going to find a hot spot somewhere if there's no internet, or if you've got internet, how to sit in your driveway and get work done. We had a great program at Coral Gables meeting on cybersecurity. We had another one, we teamed with the Development and Land Use Committee on a large-scale conservation and sustainable development in master planned communities like Babcock Ranch and Sunbridge and Deering Park, how those communities have planned so that they don't have issues with things like flooding, and so that they have power on during storms. And it's really been it was really very eye-opening. An upcoming program we have for the, I believe it's the Breakers meeting, is a new area that we are looking at, and Dave Ehrenberg is going to discuss the opioid crisis. So we have a wide range of things that we deal with that we find that the members of the section deal with. Next slide, please. So our committee is very small. Sometimes we have, just a few members at our meetings. Sometimes we have a lot more. But we partner with the at-large members to take our projects out to every circuit. The at-large members become our boots on the ground. And so a great example of this has been the No Place Like Home initiative. No Place Like Home was created by Bay Area Legal Services to provide assistance to low-income homeowners. And they helped identify issues with title and cure defects through corrective documents, administrative processes, and court action. And their program was very successful as the No Place Like Home 1.0. So they, when that kind of came to a close, they developed No Place Like Home 2.0, and the section became involved both through our committee and then through the at-large members. There is a very good video that we have on the website for the Disaster and Emergency Committee, and you can get on that and view the video. It's about 2.5 hours long, and it gives you information that you need to be able to provide this type of assistance, and it lets each person take that No Place Like Home concept and take it back to their home county and be able to put it to work. And the at-large members are vital in helping make that happen, because there's so many at-large members that can really help us get that out there. The No Place Like Home program doesn't require a disaster declaration, as a lot of them do. It's more about disaster preparedness. So it's a situation where they noticed that you had people that had some kind of title defect, so that a house was not necessarily in their name, and they were trying to get disaster relief after a storm through FEMA or some other organization, and they weren't able to get it. And this kind of goes in hand in hand with what LaTonya is going to be talking about with the heirs property, but it is there are other things other than just the heirs property that can create these title defects. But we did find that in the area that I'm in, a lot of people that have homes that have been, generational homes, and they've never done probates. A lot of family farms that fit into that that area, and the property's just been in the family for a long time. When the person that it's titled in passes away, everybody just keeps working, and nothing happens until there's a disaster, and then something has to happen, and they're delayed in being able to get whatever kind of relief they may be entitled to. So it's a very important program. And the at-large members and the Disaster and Emergency Preparedness Committee team to make that work. If you would like to be part of the committee, we would love to have you. Please come to one of our meetings or reach out to me for more information. If you have any ideas about programs or have something you'd like to speak on, I would love that. You can find me in the Reptile directory online, or I will also put my contact information in the chat so that you can see it. And I appreciate you.
Thanks, Colleen. And we're going to have everyone's contact information included in the presentation material. So we'll hopefully make it easy for people to get connected. So with that, we'll turn it over to LaTonya Lipscomb Smith to talk about the heirs property project through Three Rivers Legal Services. And we do have a video that helps to explain what this program is all about. So I'm going to do my best to share that. Give me one moment.
Heirs property occurs when the record title owners that own the home don't do estate planning necessary before they pass. And so what happens is the heirs that remain don't take the probate action in court to vest title in one or more of the heirs. So the title of record is unclear. Liz really manages the ecosystem of partners resident engagement partners, legal partners, and also data partners to really understand more about the magnitude of the problem and also to bring awareness to families so they will then take action.
There's a high concentration of heirs properties in Duval County. That's an area that LISC has a focus on and trying to help generate home ownership opportunities for folks in low to moderate income communities. Preservation became the best possible way to do it. And so if we could preserve home ownership for folks who are living in homes and acting like owners, but who don't have formal ownership rights, then that became a path forward for us to realize this opportunity to bring home ownership to the community.
Partnering with this was like a godsend. I actually came in as a client through one of the other community partners that LISC has. Jacksonville is rooted in a lot of discriminatory practices that separate communities from knowledge, communities from resources, communities from just protections that are needed to pass on generational wealth. So a lot of people feel like if their will is written, then it's the same thing as the will being recorded. So many times people pass away with a written will inside of their safety deposit box that nobody knows exists. You can't execute something that nobody knows exists. LISC being able to provide the funding for free legal services, it immensely impacts the urban core to the point where it's like, now we're talking generational wealth. Now we're changing the game. Now we're creating a foundation for the next generation to have access to equity.
We were very privileged to have LISC want to join us because they said that they wanted us to do what we were already doing, just in a bigger capacity, which was music to our ears. Working for legal aid, you are limited to the funding that you have. So we saw that the need was great, but we only had 2 staff attorneys and 1 support staff. With the support of LISC, we've been able to expand to 4 attorneys now and 2 paralegals. And so we've been able to do what we were doing on a smaller scale, on a much bigger scale.
Here recently, LISC partnered with the Sherwood Forest Community Association to provide services to assist the homeowners in paying their property taxes. When LISC came to me and was saying, this is something we will provide, then I, helped get the word out in the community. I too benefited from that. And that was such a great need. And LISC helped several of the families. It is what the community is in need of.
LISC's strategy is about finding and preserving and supporting. So we want to find the heirs properties and the residents who are affected. We want to preserve their title, either through heirs property resolution, through legal assistance, or prevention of heirs property. And we also want to support a system of partners who really engage with residents in these neighborhoods to identify heirs properties issues, property tax issues, all with the goal of preserving home ownership and building family wealth through home ownership.
All of these things come together in sort of an ecosystem, right? And so think of it that way. They're pieces to a puzzle. And what we're trying to do is put the puzzle together in a way that people can see their path. They can feel empowered, right, to take the action they think is in their best interest.
Okay. So great video.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. I am LaTonya Lipscomb Smith, Managing Attorney of the Jacksonville office and the Heirs Property Project Manager. The Three Rivers Heirs Property Project is actually the inception of it is the No Place Like Home Project 1.0. which is great. That is the springboard of our project. We have been 6 years strong in our the Ayers Property Project at our firm. It started in 2019 with just 2 attorneys and 1 paralegal. Our firm covers 17 counties in Northeast Florida. So as you can imagine, that's a very high clientele and geographic area that has to be covered. But the main difference that we found from the No Place Like Home project was that full-time legal aid staff members were needed. Because of the many tentacles that you encounter in Ayers property, having a foothold in the local legal aid programs in our different counties across Florida became very essential and worthwhile. Back in 2019, we were the first legal aid law firm in the state of Florida to house full-time legal aid staff attorneys on this particular project. Now there's 8 legal aids across the state of Florida. So what's good about this program and working with the reptile section in ALMS is that there are local jurisdictions that have legal aid heirs property programs that could very much benefit from pro bono attorneys. So that's very good to know by 2025. But as we know, as you can see on the screen, what heirs property is when the real property is passed down from multiple generations without a will or proper deed transfer, which adds to home ownership of many, many heirs. Next slide. What we have heard so far from Colleen regarding the different issues that we will see in heirs property program, of course, disaster relief funding in that area is very, very prominent. However, we also see foreclosures is a high instance of heirs property issues. The issue with heirs property is that, as was already mentioned, relatives continue to live in the home, act as if they own it, and it's not until something happens that they learn that they actually have a home heirs property, and so they are unable to act as a true owner for the home. So a disaster hits, they go and apply for funding, they find out at that time that they're not the owner. Prior to 2024, FEMA had very strict rules and regulations regarding heirs property and current family members living in the home. But since the summer of 2020, they have relaxed those qualifications. Now, if you are a current homeowner, or excuse me, if you have heirs property, if you can show proof of a utility bill, mail that comes to the home, a will labeling you as, identifying you as the owner, you can at least start the process with the intention that you should, of course, go through probate in order to effectuate the transfer. But it's good to know that under the disaster and relief area, there is a way forward if you currently have heirs property and a disaster hits. Next slide. So in combating heirs property, I really envision it one of 2 ways. There are the reactive measures, and then there's the proactive measures. The reactive measures are when an emergency hits. You figure out that there's a foreclosure, there's a disaster, your home is up for property tax deed sale. You then learn you have heirs property, and now you are fighting against the clock. There's a major thing happening. You have a very limited time in order to effectuate the probate court process. Proactive is when you aren't currently in an emergency crisis and you want to look into the future. So that is more of estate planning. You own your own home, but you want to prevent heirs property in the future for the next generation. Next slide. So the reactive, of course, is probate. Next slide. In Florida, as we're all aware, the two main types of probate that you would go through in order to clear this title would be summary versus formal administration. We do know that if the property is less than $75,000, not including real estate, that you can complete it via summary administration. However, we have found in most jurisdictions that the judges do prefer that you complete formal administration if the decedent has been deceased for less than 2 years. There's things that pop up. And so we have found from a practice tip that if the decedent has been deceased for less than 2 years, it's easier, smoother process to go ahead and just complete it via formal administration. Next slide. The proactive features, the common legal tools that we provide for our clients would be under estate planning. And it is not just the processing of deeds that we do. Because we are full service legal aid, we like to provide a full array of services. So we would provide our clients with a will, a deed, and then also advance directives. So they can leave our services between 3 to 6 different legal documents for their estate planning process. What is not mentioned here that would also be beneficial would be trust. Trust, we tread lightly because our clientele are mainly low income and the property is not generally used for fee generating purposes for the beneficiaries. We have found that trust is not necessary at this stage. If the clients had higher income, bigger assets, trust would be more appropriate. But for our legal aid clients, we have found that trust really isn't necessary. Next slide. Without the proper estate planning tools, we have found the 3 major factors that we encounter would be the home could end up stuck in probate. A major reason why that would happen would be because you're dealing with so many generational lines. It is really difficult to find contact information in order to effectuate service for all of these many heirs. You also find that a lot of family members, the more disconnected that they are to that asset. So for example, if the decedent is the great grandmother and the home is in Florida and you have a young great grandchild living in California, they have no emotional connection. And so when we offer to try to reach out and engage them, because we need them in the process in order to serve them, we would love to be able to complete waivers, but just the simple fact of getting in reach of these relatives is a holdup that we find in the probate process. Next slide. And then this again is just a reiteration. I enjoy visuals and acronyms. So when I think of estate planning, I think of a toolkit. It's a great box of tools to provide our clients with the various different estate planning options. So thank you.
Great, thanks, LaTonya. And I didn't get to mention as a fun fact that I grew up in Duval County, so I feel very like you, Brenda, and I, we'd have a lot to talk about if we got together.
We do.
Maybe commiserate over how bad the Jaguars have performed over the past few years.
Don't get me started. Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, no problem. So we're going to talk now about the Construction Law Committee. We have a pro bono subcommittee. And so because of the size of the Construction Law Committee, we have established several subcommittees, one of which is the pro bono subcommittee. And just to kind of give you an overview as to what we do, we meet on a monthly basis. So if you're a member of the reptile section, I think it only costs about $75 a year to join. You can become a member of the Construction Law Committee and join in on our monthly CLE calls that we host by Zoom. And during those monthly meetings, we also have a business meeting where we go over the work of our various subcommittees. And I would say that much like the section, we have some what you might call general standing committees that are more administrative in nature, but we also have several substantive committees that touch on different aspects of construction law. And those would include, we have a construction litigation subcommittee that monitors all cases that come out of district courts of appeal within the state of Florida that impact the practice of construction law. And those tend to come out on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. So if you're interested in getting updates on things like construction lien law, construction contracts, those sorts of things, you could receive those as a member of our committee. We have a construction transactions committee. And so if you look at the practice of construction law and our, perhaps higher paying clients, we're typically focused on handling agreements between owners and contractors, owners and architects, contractors and subcontractors. But many that practice in the construction transaction space are adept and able to handle more basic construction transactions. And we have the ability and the expertise to assist you in developing forms for your prospective clients in the event that they are entering into repair contracts for their homes, particularly after something like a hurricane. The other thing that we monitor as a committee is construction regulation. So construction contracting, so general contractors, subcontractors, along with design professionals, architects, engineers, surveyors. Those are regulated industries. They're statutory regulations, they're administrative regulations, and we have members within that subcommittee that sit on various industry regulatory bodies and are able to provide updates as things are changing. If you look at how the construction industry is regulated, it's largely driven by the people that have the ability to influence the way in which regulations are drafted. And those tend to be people on the industry side of things. And so, we're not oftentimes asked as a committee to weigh in on potential regulations, but it is something that we monitor. The other substantive committee that we have is an alternative dispute resolution subcommittee. And that subcommittee consists of both practitioners that focus on mediation and arbitration. And that subcommittee has become much more active in recent years. And we're going to talk about how members of that subcommittee have been able to provide pro bono legal assistance. And then we have the pro bono subcommittee. The pro bono subcommittee is a relatively recent subcommittee of the CLC. It started in 2022 out of partnership between our former chair, Reese Henderson, who is a shareholder with Gray Robinson, another attorney in Jacksonville, Elizabeth Ferguson, who practices mainly construction defect litigation, and then Jacksonville Area Legal Aid. And so they were the ones that had the idea that we should consider having a pro bono subcommittee. And our partnership began with Jacksonville Area Legal Aid. But since that time, we have attempted to, as a committee, locate representatives within our committee that can be liaisons with the various judicial circuits and legal aid providers within those circuits. And we've offered a number of things to include CLE presentations on construction defect litigation. So one of the biggest areas of construction litigation in Florida pertains to construction defects. So understanding the Chapter 558 process, there's a mandatory notice and opportunity to cure process before you bring any action for construction defects in Florida, and then what the types of causes of action one might have. Because, if someone performs defective construction, that is typically covered by the contractor's insurance policy. So there are ways to be made whole in the event of a construction defect. And so some of the substantive issues that, I would say that our committee members encounter on a regular basis that some of your clients may encounter would be claims of lien. So Chapter 713, Florida statutes, the Florida lien law is very technical in nature, but we have many attorneys who are well versed in it. And if you had a client that, say, entered into a repair contract for their roof, and things went south with the roofing contractor and the roofer decided to record a claim of lien against the property, that's something that we could assist with. We talked about claims for defective work. The other issue that you might encounter in your practice is clients who enter into agreements or contracts with unscrupulous contractors. And sometimes what we find is that contractors don't have the appropriate licensure. And Florida law is pretty helpful for consumers in that regard. In the event that you're an owner and you enter into an unlicensed contract with a person that's providing work at your house, and that work should be performed by a licensed contractor, that contract is voidable at the election of the owner. And so we could provide some assistance in understanding those issues and what work might be required to have a license and what work might not be required to have a license, because there's sometimes a gray area between those two things. Claims for breach of contract. So if there are payment disputes or things of that nature, those are things that we can help with. And then finally, Florida has a consumer-friendly process for owners that are able to obtain a judgment against the contractor for performing defective workmanship. If that contractor has abandoned the project or has run away with money or anything like that, there is an opportunity to be made whole through Florida's Homeowners Recovery Fund. It's a fairly lengthy process that you have to go through, but if you find yourself in a situation where you have a client who has a contractor that's gone out of business and they've been damaged, that's something that we could also help with. So those are the things that we can help with, and we have been able to help various clients through legal aid providers. And I'm going to turn it over to Pam Holcombe to talk about some of the cases that we've been able to work with. Pam?
Thank you, Brett. I'm mindful that we are at 12:51. I'm going to keep my presentation very brief. I became involved, and I think we were up and running before 2022, because I think I got involved in 2021. It was definitely the COVID times. And that was through my volunteer work with St. Johns County Legal Aid, which is affiliated with Jacksonville Legal Aid, which I'll call JALA. And Elizabeth Ferguson and Reese Henderson had been working with them. Quickly, I had moved up here from South Florida from big firm practice, and I quickly became the on-call construction expert just because I knew more than the average bear. I would say at that point in time, my practice was, 40% construction. I was not doing as much of construction as I am now, which just has been a function of being in St. Johns County, background in complex commercial litigation and big firms. It's one of the bigger industries. And the need for assistance for our most vulnerable homeowners was crying out. Unfortunately, the people who are wealthy and have homes are able to very well, but even they get predated upon. But it is the folks that are least able to pay for legal services, least able to repair their own homes, that get predated upon. We see a lot of roofer, a lot of solar panel scams, and outright scams. The legislature, I give them credit, has first limited the assignment of insurance benefits and then, in theory, eliminated them. That does not mean that these companies are not working around the clock to come up with structures to get around that ban. And as Brett said, we're working with several prongs. We're trying to create CLE materials to help our legal aid staff, attorneys. So there's resources that are easily available for them. We have had our membership of the Construction Law Committee help folks in many capacities, not just as taking over cases individually, serving as a volunteer mediator in construction disputes, to mentoring of legal aid staff attorneys, who want to take on the case but just don't have that substantive law expertise. I'll just mention a couple of cases. One where one of our members mentored a legal aid staff attorney, and it was a 90-year-old woman and her 70-year-old daughter. They had an insurance claim. They were working with a roofer. Somehow, a solar contractor showed up, stuck paperwork in the hands of the daughter, who wasn't the legal owner of the home. And she thought she was signing something that needed to be done for the roofing. And then turns out this is a 900 square foot home. They were being sued by the solar contractor for $70,000 or $80,000, such an egregiously in excess of the value of the work. And sadly, when you have people who are, they are very vulnerable when someone says they're going to take your home away from you. And we got a great, very experienced construction law attorney to mentor this legal aid staff attorney. And I wish I had the end to the story, but I suspect the minute that our CLC member got involved, the story of the solar contractor changed very quickly. And this is out of JALA. Somebody doesn't need roof repairs, doesn't want roof repairs, they can't afford them. Someone knocks on the door, hi, I'm just in the area. And don't worry about it, the insurance company will pay for everything. That is, something we see over and over again. This was another case where Jala asked for help, and I happened to help on this one, but informally behind the scenes, because I had experience with this particular disreputable contractor and, basically told them where to punch. But when the same attorney who backed off because I was a construction attorney did not have that same response with legal aid. They know that the clients are vulnerable and that the staff attorney's expertise, and gosh bless our legal aid staff attorneys, they do amazing work over so many areas of law. We really want to be there for them. We want to get the word out of what we can do to help and continue to fight the good fight. And I'm so appreciative that our CLC members have really stepped up. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. And because we're short on time and we've already touched on FACE, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Rubin to talk about the last component of our presentation today. As I mentioned before, on slide 36, we have our contact information. We are working to set up a portal on the Reptile website so that legal aid service providers can have a single point of contact to access attorneys who can then assist with the various section initiatives. It's not live yet, but save the link and we hope to have that up soon. So Steve, could you go ahead and talk about the Certified Lawyers on Call program?
I certainly can, and thank you. My name's Steve Rubin. I'm with CLOC. Are we strictly sticking to 1 p.m. or are we going over just for my process?
Jorge?
We can go over if needed. No
Okay.
worries. I'm gonna drop some of the CLE information in the materials for anybody that needs to jump off, but you can keep going if you're available.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So the BLSE mission, Board of Legal Specialization and Education, most of you are probably familiar with it, has two primary functions. One is approving all CLE courses. That's how this course got approved. And the other is to administer the certification program. Next slide, please. So board certification recognizes attorneys' special knowledge, skills, and proficiency in the practice of law. And it also reviews the attorney's ethics and professionalism before they're admitted as a certified lawyer. The specialization program certification was started in 1982, which was approved by the Florida Supreme Court. And presently we have 27 areas of legal specialties. Next slide, please. You'll find all of the rules regarding the certification program in Chapter 6 of the Rules Regulating the Florida Bar. I'm picking out a few of them just so you can see the process of approving a board-certified lawyer. Under the Rule 6-3.5, obviously you have to be a member in good standing. Next slide, please. And then these are the standards that apply to all of the legal specialty areas. As minimum standards, you have to be practicing for 5 years or more, substantially involved in the practice area, which usually means anywhere from 35 to 45% of your practice. You must have a certain amount of continuing legal education courses that are not introductory. They have to be usually intermediate or advanced, and usually within a 5-year period of about 75 hours of CLE. You must pass a written examination, although when there are new areas of certification, there is some exceptions to that rule. And finally, the applicant is subject to peer review. That involves soliciting attorneys in the community who have fill out written evaluations of the lawyer applicant. They're all confidential. The lawyer applicant doesn't really know what's being said about them, but it's used to solicit the community to see what the reputation of the applicant is in the community, because once they have the designation of certification, they'll be known to the public and other attorneys of having this special knowledge and skill, and especially having high professionalism and ethics. Next slide, please. So here are the 27 areas of certification. I've put into bold text those relating to the reptile section, condo and plan development law, construction law, elder law, real estate, wills, trusts, and estates. Next slide, please. The next few slides are just getting into the details of what each of these reptile-related areas are. I won't go through them. Next slide, please. When you get the materials, you can take a look. And again, I ask you to go to Chapter 6 of the Rules Regulating the Florida Bar, and you'll see each specialty area having its own subsection within Chapter 6. So certified lawyers on call, what's that? This was created in 2018 when I was chair of the board. I knew from my own experience and the experience of other certified lawyers that they are providing pro bono service. I was also aware of the Lawyers Advising Lawyers program, where lawyers of less experience contact lawyers with greater experience to help them out. And I thought it would be a good service to have to allow a board certified lawyer to make contact with legal aid staff attorneys and attorneys who are working with legal aid in the event they had a legal question in one of the 27 areas of law. It was not intended to be an extended period of consultation. However, there's no rule which says that the certified lawyer, once they start providing advice, can continue to assist the legal aid attorney for as long as the two wish to. So we created this CLOC service, and I was working with Claude Nelson at the time. Some of you may be familiar with him at the Florida Bar Foundation. So we created the service as a joint project of both the BLSE and the Florida Bar Foundation, which, as you know, is now the FFLA. Next slide, please. How do you use CLOC? If you're a legal aid staff attorney or you've been given a case by legal aid and you're working on it and you come across a legal issue that you think a certified lawyer can assist you with, you will contact me. I'm the CLOC service coordinator. The email address is there. You could also call me, but you'll send me an email at that address. What's important is that you attach to that email the CLOC acknowledgement and limitation form, which we have on the next slide. This is telling me that you, as the staff attorney, understand that there's no lawyer-client relationship between the CLOC advisor and the legal aid's staff attorney's client. The legal aid staff attorney remains in complete control of the attorney-client relationship, and the CLOC advisor is just assisting the attorney and has no direct contract with the client. So when you sign this acknowledgement form, you're letting me know that you understand that. Once I have that acknowledgement form, we continue with the process. Next slide, please. So what you'll do is you'll tell me in a sentence or two what area of law you think that we can help you with. I'm not asking you at that time to provide me with any names. As a matter of fact, we don't want you to provide any names of clients, because the first thing that has to happen when I assign an advisor is to do a conflicts check. So you'll say something like real property title defect problem. And I'll know that the area of law is real estate law. And then I will contact an advisor on my CLOC list who's certified in real estate law. I will let them know that you've asked me for advice in that area. And if that advisor is available, I will then send an email back to the staff attorney with the CLOC advisor's contact information, email, telephone number. I'll also have a detailed email, a boilerplate email, which explains the entire program again, so you don't have to search around looking for what the procedures are. And once the staff attorney has the CLOC advisor's information, the staff attorney contacts the CLOC attorney by email or phone. The two get together. Hopefully, the advisor can assist. If for some reason the advisor has a conflict after the staff attorney provides the details of the case, I'll assign another advisor. If there's some other problem, I'll go down the list until we can find someone that can assist the staff attorney. Next slide, please. Next slide. So here is the information. This is also on the Florida Bar Board Certification website. It's also on the FFLA website, which has the information about certified lawyers on call. I have my telephone number and my email information, so it's easy for you to contact me. Our goal is to help you when you need assistance on a specific legal issue. And we have over 200 CLOC volunteers willing to assist in the 27 areas of law. So we encourage you to use the CLOC service whenever you feel it's appropriate. Thank you.
Wow. It's a nice animation. Thanks, Stephen. That was great. Jorge, do we have any questions?
Yes, we actually did have a question that was posted. Let me see if it for some it may have disappeared. I answered it. Oh, I see that Pamela also answered it. So I'm going to read the question out loud for the benefit of the audience, just in case they can't see it. So the question was, I have a dear friend that moved to Ocala. She is disabled and has very limited means. She purchased a home there. The house inspector really failed to identify numerous and costly repairs. Is there someone that you can speak on a pro bono basis? Much obliged. And Pamela offered her email. This is a great example of a typical example that the legal aid community can see, in particular when we have disasters, right? And this is one of those challenges. It just happens that when I saw the message, I connected, since this is in Ocala, I connected Ronald with the local legal aid that covers Marion County. That would be Community Legal Services. And this is a great example where when we see these type of issues, if anybody at Community Legal Services may need to reach out to a resource, who would they call then? That's where this webinar comes into play. It's an amazing resource to have. And Pam, I know you answered there. Pamela, you answered there on the Q&A, but if there was anything else that you wanted to add to that question.
Certainly, and I would say this is the perfect type of example where, you know, this lawyer's friend might contact Marion County Legal Aid and they say, we can't help you with this because it's real estate litigation. It's not something in their wheelhouse. This is where getting our liaisons who are actually connected with Marion County so they know that to reach out to our CLC pro bono group. Is anyone on the Zoom for Marion County Legal Aid?
Trying to check if
well, if you would ask their
that would be
pro bono
Community Legal Services. I'm trying to see if there's anybody from Community Legal Services in the chat.
The other thing that I would add is when we receive requests like that, oftentimes our next step is to send a confidential, it's a request to our members through the CLC listserv. So, you know, of the 500 or so members, they're all receiving the email blasts. And so it's very easy for us to locate folks that are in geographically close proximity to where an issue arises because we are a statewide organization.
There was another question that came in the chat about if attendees are going to receive an email copy of the materials afterwards, and the answer is yes. Anybody that registered for the webinar, if they were unable to attend, they will get a copy of the recording and the link to the materials as well. I don't know if there are any other questions. When I heard 12,000 members, I was mind blown. You know, now I know it's definitely the biggest section. I've been a legal aid attorney for almost 10 years now, and I know the challenges that our clients face. We want to be able to answer every single question, and we just can't. You know, in the legal aid, we have a really tight legal aid community where we collaborate. So it's great to know that we have this additional resource and partnership and another section to rely on. So I really think the reptile section is leading by example, and this CLOC service program, it's amazing. It's a great resource to have. Sometimes I wish I could go back and use. I wish I would have used it more often. But it's a great resource for the legal aid community. I know we're a little bit over time, so I did drop the CLE code here into the chat. As always, I'm going to read it out loud. It's 2502240N. So with that said, I know we're a little bit over time. Any closing remarks from our speakers?
I just
No,
want to
thank you,
say
Jorge.
I appreciate you putting this all together and happy to assist in any way we can. And I'm speaking on behalf of this section.
Thank you so much, Brenda, and thank you everybody for joining us here today. I'll be sending out the materials in a few hours, so have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jorge.
everyone.
Thank you.